everyone, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I know I have a slightly different angle for the background, so I hope that that's okay. So I didn't think I would be doing this video just because honestly I felt like I hadn't read a lot in February, but I looked back and I realized I actually read 8 books in February, and there are quite a few books I would love to talk to you about. So if you're new here, I'm gonna break this video into sections. That's usually how I like to do my wrap-ups, just to have some different portions to talk about rather than just here's the books I read and here's what I thought of them. So we're gonna start off with reading stats. These are gonna be very basic because I do a video later on in the year where I'll tell you more in depth about my reading stats. But for the month of February, I read 8 books. For those 8 books, I gave out 4 4-stars, 1 5-star, 1 3-star, 2 2-stars, and there were no 1-star books. In terms of the formatting for the books that I did read, of those 8, I read 5 of those 8 books via audiobook and 3 of those books physically, so you can know what kind of month that it was. If you're watching my vlogs, you know that I was also having a hard time mentally and spiritually and just working through quite a few things, but I'm feeling a lot better. This fabulous March, it's March 1st as I'm recording this, and that's it. Those are the very basic reading stats. So let me tell you about the books that I am still in the middle of. These are books that I'm still planning to continue. I'll be reading them into March. I just ran out of time to read them last month. So the first book that I'm still in the middle of is Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. This is a haunted house horror story, which if you're not new here, you know that I freaking love a horror story. This shelf behind me is entirely like horror and thriller. I love a spooky book. So in Episode 13, we are following the cast and crew for this ghost hunting reality TV show, and they've gotten the opportunity to go and do an investigation at a house no one has been in since the 70s. This house was actually the site, the research center for some research on like psychedelics, drugs, the afterlife, and at the time, people believed that humans only use 10% of their brains. So they wanted to find out what's possible and what's open to us if humans were able to access 100% of their brain capacity. So that's the premise of their research. Apparently, things definitely went wrong. It was abandoned and no one has been in the house since. This investigative crew for this ghost hunting show goes in, and lo and behold, the house is haunted and starts to reveal its secrets. I don't know what that means. I'm very early in the book. I'm only like 20 pages in. I'm thinking I want to try to find the book in a different format because this is a case where I wanted to read it on Libby, but for some reason it wasn't on Libby. It was on my library's like ENYPL app. That app crashes all the time, has a hard time opening the book, and glitches constantly. So that's the only reason I haven't finished that book, is that it's quite literally hard to read because of the malfunctions with the app. So hopefully I'm able to find another copy of it. The next book that I'm in the middle of is While We Were Dating by Jasmine Guillory. I actually just started this last night on reading sprints. I am doing this thing where I'm not pushing myself to read books for any arbitrary timeline. I'm gonna finish it when I finish it. So I got about 40 pages into it. I think I'm on page like 45 now, and I'm happy to report that I am freaking really enjoying this book. It's such a fun time. It reads like a really great rom-com. I realized I've pitched this book to you incorrectly before, so let me correct myself. In this book, we are following Ben and Anna. Ben works for an advertising kind of agency, and he's hoping to land this huge gig, this huge deal for his company. And this company is like doing cell phone like advertising stuff, and the lead that they hire for the campaign is Anna. Ben does land the gig, and he and Anna start to work together on the ad campaigns. There's definitely a connection there. They're flirting with each other. They really like each other. It's very cute so far, very funny. I believe at some point Ben is going to help Anna with a family problem. They're going to get even closer together, and they're gonna have an opportunity to be together in the Hollywood spotlight because Anna is a famous actress and she is vying for an Oscar. Very adorable, love it so far, and I'm very happy to report that I will definitely be finishing this probably ASAP. And the final book that I am still in the middle of, which still has all of its Target stickers on it, is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is her newest book. It is her YA debut. I'm about like 50% through the book. I have that much left, so I'm almost right in the middle. This book follows Celine and Brad. Celine is a social media like content creator. She does conspiracy theories, and Brad used to be her childhood friends, but they had this falling out. And this is about them where they go to this wilderness retreat for the scholarship for university, and them coming together, having banter, kind of like rivals to lovers. I'm not loving this book. I'm enjoying this book, but I think that something that I'm not enjoying is that Celine seems to be very, very self-aware, but then will do things to contradict herself, which I suppose is true to real life, but her actions don't make sense to the level of awareness that she has of herself and the things that she does and doesn't want to do. I hope that makes sense. That's kind of how I'm feeling. And I also feel like the book is very, very funny, but almost so funny to the point where it's taking away from the plot and our characters' time together. And then I feel like it's just constant banter and jokes. And I'm really looking for more emotional depth and kind of like repairing of their relationship, which I don't feel like it's happening yet. So we'll see what the second half of this book is like, but that is a book that I am still in the process of reading. And those are the 3 books that I am continuing on into March from February. Now let me tell you about the books that I've DNF'd. I promise we're gonna get into the reading wrap up in a moment. Okay, books I DNF'd. I'm gonna keep this brief. I DNF'd Death Note Volume 1 and 2. The reason why I did is that this has something in it that I don't like. Now, Death Note follows the story of this young boy who finds a death notebook in the streets. And how death notebooks work is that they are bound to like demons who, when you write in the notebook, whoever's name you've written will die. And you can decide how they're gonna die, or you can just have them have a heart attack. Now, the thing is that this book is like about morality and whether or not it's right to kill someone for the right reasons. But what I'm struggling with this book is that our main character here, he has no hesitation in writing people's names in the book. And what he does is he convinces himself that he's going to kill every single bad person in the world, and people will be able to know that it's him, and therefore the world will be a better place. And the thing is, he likes killing people. Like, I'm only a few pages in, but I fucking know that he likes killing people. He's the kind of person that like scares me. And it's the people who do the wrong thing and convince themselves that they are doing it for the right reasons. Very, very self-righteous people who do horrendous things because it's the right thing and they are the savior of humanity. So I got the ick and I DNF'd it. Not to say that I'll never come back to it, but I sure as hell am not gonna read it now. And the second book that I DNF'd is a library book. So I apologize for the very, very shiny nature of it. This is Home Field Advantage. This is a story of a cheerleader and a football player who fall in love. The football player is the only female football player on her team. It's one of the very, very few high schools where she's allowed to play football. And these two fall in love. I DNF'd it because honestly, I wasn't vibing with the writing right away. I also read the reviews and I know it's going to get very, very dark and very triggering, and it just was not what I was in the mood to read, so I DNF'd it. Look at that! It's time for the wrap up portion of this video. Let's go in order. So the first book that I started with was Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. This follows Willa and Ryder. So Willa is a soccer player at her university. She's hoping to make it big time and in the long run to like have her own charity. Willa is very hot-headed and she's dealing with a lot of issues. And then we have Ryder. Ryder has lost his hearing due to a illness that he had, and now he uses a hearing aid, and he's struggling to adapt to being deaf or partially deaf. And Willa and Ryder decide they don't like each other because when Willa is late to class one day because of practice, she needs to ask Ryder for the notes. So she like whispers to him, or she assumes that the professor, when he said that, Ryder heard it, not knowing that Ryder is deaf. Ryder obviously did not hear it, just kind of ignores her and walks away. And it has a rough start to their relationship. It's kind of enemies to lovers in that Ryder doesn't hate Willa, but Willa hates Ryder, mostly because of the whole miscommunication thing. It's them falling in love, navigating their own individual grief and hardship. I didn't love this book. I thought it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It was just kind of there, honestly. And the reason I say that is just, I don't know. I didn't care about the couple that much. Yes, their banter was good, but I didn't feel like they had the connection. Like, I was just supposed to believe that they had the connection. And ultimately, I think the story was more about their individual hardships, which is definitely very interesting to read about, but I was there for the romance. Then I read Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. I really enjoyed this book. This book is about Ollie. Ollie is a middle schooler who's dealing with some grief in her life. She is struggling, and one day she is coming home from school. She goes to this lake where she usually goes to read. There is this woman, this lake, the river, where she reads. This woman is standing by the river about to throw a book into the river. Ollie says, "I don't think so. You shouldn't throw books away." She snatches the book from the woman and she runs away. This book actually turns out to be nonfiction and a diary about some hauntings and perhaps a scarecrow demon thing from centuries ago. She goes on a field trip the next day. Turns out this farm is the exact same farm from the Notebook. And this family is a descendant of the family in the Notebook, because of course it is. And this is about Ollie, the friends that she makes, and them trying to run away from some scary ass scarecrows. That's a pretty shit summary, but that's about what it is. I enjoyed this for what it was. Definitely gives me Goosebumps vibes. It was a good time, mostly because I love the strength of the characters and the whole found family aspect of the story, but it didn't scare me. But I wasn't expecting it to scare me because it's middle grade and very young middle grade. So I gave this 4 stars. Then I read A Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. This is a book about a man who works at a bookstore, like a mystery thriller, true crime bookstore. And a few years ago, he wrote a blog about like 8 perfect murders, the perfect murders within the genre, and how people were able to get away with it with those books. And we're in the present time now, and people have started dying. And lo and behold, a detective believes that they are actually following this list that this bookstore owner published a long time ago. So this is about the investigation and them trying to put the clues together about what exactly is going on, plus what the bookstore owner is hiding. I thought this book was heavy-handed at times in that it outright spoiled itself on the occasion. And not only did it spoil itself, it spoiled lots and lots and lots of classic books in real life, to which I was like, for what? For what? Because it didn't add anything to the plot or the story. It felt like it was just being spoiled for the sake of being spoiled. I didn't like this book. I gave it 2 stars, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Then I read Our Last Echoes by Kate Alice Marshall. You will know that I read These Fleeting Shadows in January and loved it so much that I was immediately like, I have to read everything else that Kate Alice Marshall writes. So in Our Last Echoes, we are following a girl named Sophia. Sophia's mother passed away a while ago, actually a long time ago. Sophia grew up in foster care. She's now aging up out of the foster system. She's 18 years old, and she receives a phone call from this researcher who's like, what do you know about what happened to your mom on this island? Sophia has always had dreams about drowning, but as far as she knows, her mom died in a hospital, so she doesn't know why she has this memory of her mother on this island, on this boat where she's drowning, when supposedly that never happened until this researcher calls her and is like, I have pictures of you and your mom on this island when you were a baby. So she goes, and it becomes this investigation for her about what really happened to her mom and more about her own history. And Sophia has some weird supernatural powers, shall we say. So it's her trying to find that out on this island where a bunch of researchers are researching birds. It was weird. It was weird. A little too weird for me in that I didn't know what the fuck was happening. At any point throughout the book, I could not follow the plot. I didn't know what was happening. We were alternating timelines and media formats and points of views, and it was just doing this so much that I didn't know what was happening. I read this book and I could not tell you much about it, and for that reason, I'm giving it 2 stars. It was just very, very, very hard to follow. The ending was unsatisfying, and I genuinely had no idea what the fuck was going on. Look at me setting a TBR and following that TBR, because I read Ninth House and I read Hellbent. So let's start with Ninth House. I listened to the audiobook for both, which, by the way, both audiobooks are fucking amazing. Love them. Okay, so Ninth House, let's start with that. Ninth house follows Galaxy, Alex Stern. It's very, very, very dark, has multiple content warnings. Her life was hard. One day, Alex wakes up where she is in the hospital recovering from a fentanyl, I believe, overdose. And she supposedly had no memory of what's happened, but she is the only survivor of this massive crime scene where everyone was brutally and violently murdered, but Alex lives. Then this guy from Yale, who is part of these secret societies, is like,
we're gonna give you a full ride to Yale.
Because Alex can see ghosts, and that apparently is a very important thing for these secret societies at Yale who practice magic and who need those kind of abilities. Alex agrees, and it's about that and her trying to solve the mystery of what happened to this other student. And it's fucking weird. Like, I can't. It's dark academia. It's weird. There are magical societies. It's dark. There's magic. Alex is a bad bitch. You all know I love a bad bitch. So of course I fucking love this book. I will say it took me a while to get into because I feel like this book started too late in its origin story. So I know that that's pretty common with fantasy, but for this one, it just left me feeling confused and scrambling to understand things that could have been explained had the book started a little bit earlier with Alex's story, because we're not even there when Alex gets the offer to go to Yale. And when she started that, this book starts the next semester when Alex is already at Yale, has already had all of her training for these magic societies, and we are dumped in there. I love this book. I love the characters in this book. I love the magic system in this book. I love how dark it is, which normally I don't like dark reads, but I do love how dark it is and how Leigh Bardugo was not afraid to talk about some very, very heavy conversations and topics. So I really enjoyed this book overall, but I'm giving it 4 stars for the reason that it was hard to get into, and there were definitely some elements that I feel could have been more fleshed out. And of course, when I love a book that much, I immediately jump into the sequel. So I jumped into the sequel and I read Hellbent. I'm not gonna tell you anything about Hellbent because it would be an absolute spoiler to what happened in the first book, but I do have a reading vlog where I read Hellbent, so hopefully that goes up within the next couple of weeks and you can see my full thoughts in that vlog. For now, I'll tell you I loved Hellbent even more. If you know what Hellbent is about and you know what kind of books I like to read, you know exactly why I liked Hellbent so damn much. I gave that book 5 stars. And I continued to stick to my TBR. No one's more surprised than me. I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This is a YA following Liz. Liz is a senior in high school and she is all set to go to this music school that her mom went to. It really means a lot to her and to her family. She thinks she's gonna get this scholarship, but she doesn't get the scholarship, which means that she cannot afford to go to this college. But her school and her entire town take prom really fucking seriously. And prom royalty gets to take home a $10,000 scholarship for college, which is exactly the amount that Liz needs. So she decides that she's gonna go for it. She doesn't really have a lot of friends. She's been very shy. She's hidden herself away. So she decides she's going to become prom queen. So this follows her and this new girl at school named Mac, and Mac also wants to be prom queen for fun and like a sense of connection to her mom. And this is the story of them falling in love, or at least that's how it's pitched. What I'll tell you, this is actually the story of Liz and her friends and her coming into herself, her standing up for herself, and her realizing that who she is exactly who she needs to be, and that is more than okay. I love this book mostly because of the friendship aspects. I thought the friendship was really well done. I loved Liv as a character. I'm calling her Liz. I love Liz as a character. I think that she was really, really enjoyable to read about, and her struggles and her challenges and the things that she wants to do and why she wants to do them. I really enjoyed that. But if you want to go into this and you think it's going to be entirely about the sapphic romance, I would say the romance is the weakest part of the book. And that's because Liz and Mac really don't spend that much time together, or at least we didn't get the chance to see them together. They probably had about 2 or 3 interactions throughout the entire book. And for me, the ending also left me feeling unsatisfied because Liz does something that would have led to a bigger fight, a bigger battle. And for me, I would have wanted to see that, which is why it was a 4-star book and not a 5-star book. But overall, really, really, really cute. And I absolutely enjoyed reading this book. And coming in, we have The Bodyguard. I actually started this book in December. Here we are in March. So this book follows a woman named Hannah, and Hannah does like security protection. She is a highly trained bodyguard. And then we have Jack Stapleton. Jack Stapleton is the sexiest man on earth as declared by People. He is a mega famous movie star, and he is coming to Texas to be with his mother and his family. His mother is very sick, but Jack has a stalker. And although he doesn't want a bodyguard, he's filming a movie, and the movie, like film production, is like, you're having a fucking bodyguard because we need you to film this movie. So they hire a bodyguard against his will, and it is Hannah. Jack doesn't want his family to know that he has a bodyguard or that he has a stalker and needs a bodyguard. So he and Hannah pretend that they are dating and they're home to meet the family. It is such a fun story. I will tell you, there definitely are heavier conversations, especially around grief and belonging, but it was such an enjoyable time. And I love the dynamic of a female bodyguard and her male, like, I'll say agent, that's not right. Client, I don't know. It is a very cute story and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4 stars overall. The reason why this wasn't a 5-star read for me is that I felt like it could have been longer, in the sense that we got to see a lot of dynamic between Jack and Hannah, but I feel like we were missing key moments where Jack really fell for Hannah, because it is he falls first. But overall, their banter is really fun. I think this book balances emotional depth and lightheartedness really, really well. The writing is absolutely fantastic. The storyline is great. It's a book you can easily lose yourself in, and the audiobook is really, really, really good. I listened to it on audio and it was fantastic. So those are all of the books that I read in February and how I felt about them. Let me know if you read any of these books or you plan to read any of these books. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you would like to, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!